Patrick Queen was roasted again for his Baltimore take a couple of months ago, this time by a former Ravens teammate. We talk about that, as well as the Ravens opening back up the vault at training camp practice. All that and more coming up next here on this episode of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you today on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here today. It is a Taco Thursday edition of the show, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day. We are free and available for you on all podcasting platforms. That does include an audio form. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you prefer to listen to your shows. We are there. Also in YouTube on video form. You can subscribe, like the channel, turn notifications on. Both ways, really appreciate that. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Happy August. Happy football month, right? The Ravens play football this month, and it feels so good. So good to say that. So Baltimore, their first preseason game coming up in over a week here. Is Friday, August 9 is when it will kick off. The Ravens playing. It's just so exciting to have football back. The Ravens obviously in full swing with training camp. But in the first part of the show, this was the big storyline of the day yesterday, and here on Locked On Ravens, we are in the big storyline business. Patrick Queen, obviously now current Steelers linebacker, former Ravens linebacker, certainly immersed himself in the villain role. We all know that in Pittsburgh in terms of the Ravens-Steelers rivalry. Had some comments about Baltimore, the food, the city, et cetera, et cetera. Well, he got roasted by a former Ravens teammate at the podium yesterday, so we're going to talk about that and kind of rehash that conversation a little bit. And then obviously we are going to get into training camp conversation. We'll get to that in the second part of the show. And that vault is opening up again apparently in Baltimore. Now, not the Greg Roman vault, obviously we're past that, and I think that's a good thing, right? But is there some trickeration going on in Baltimore? Some sneaky stuff going on? We'll talk about that in the second part of the show. And then finally, we have some injury updates. We got more information on Malik Ham's injury. Also, some more notes from training camp as well. So jam-packed episode, as we usually do have here on Locked On Ravens. Let's dive in to Patrick Queen getting roasted. Now, his former Ravens teammate who did this was Arthur Maulet. Current Ravens corner, obviously has had himself a heck of an offseason so far. And he got up on the podium, was asked about the Patrick Queen comments, and he obviously is more involved in this conversation because he's a former Steeler. He played corner for the Steelers for a while and was asked on it, and he ended up, he did not necessarily mince words here. He looked at the camera, and he said, PQ, the food's not better, bro. We know the city's not better, bro. Come on. And obviously it was what his opinion. Now, again, is he going to get up there and say, yeah, Pittsburgh's better in every way, shape, or form? No. But again, if we want to talk about the conversation, Patrick Queen again said that the food in Baltimore was worse than the food in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's food was better. And I can't remember the exact comment he had, but it was like he liked real food or something along those lines. I know he didn't say real food, but I can't remember exactly what he said, so I'm paraphrasing here. But then we had the conversation on this show. We had a spirited debate also on the Ryan Ripken show, which I'm a part of, about just Pittsburgh food versus Baltimore food. And I didn't want to make clear also, Arthur Maulet did take to Twitter, and he said that, Patrick Queen's his brother for life. Like, it's all jokes and whatever. But again, if the conversation here is Pittsburgh is known, if you don't know, for their pierogies. Baltimore, obviously, specifically Maryland and in that area, right? The Maryland, Baltimore, whatever, is known for crab cakes and crabs and the seafood and whatnot. When you talk about Pittsburgh pierogies, when you order a pierogi somewhere, when you buy a pierogi, are you getting a Pittsburgh pierogi? Do they call them Pittsburgh pierogies? No, they do not. Do they call them Maryland crab cakes? Baltimore crab cakes? More so Maryland, right? But Maryland crab cakes? Yeah. Maryland, Baltimore is known for the Old Bay. and this, that, and the other. Pittsburgh also has this, spot called Primanti Brothers, and I don't count that because that's a spot. It's not a food. And Patrick Queen was talking about how, he fishes, right? He fishes all the time, but he also likes, again, I want to try to find the quote because he didn't say real food, but he said something about just the, the food in Baltimore versus Pittsburgh is it's different in a way. I really want to find it now. He ended up saying, it was better atmosphere for him than in Baltimore. The food was better, and talked about how he's a big food guy. He loves the food. He's more of this is what it was. True food. It was not, the true food stuff where everything that was going on there. So yeah, true food. True food. I definitely, was in that mindset. But what does true food mean? What does true food end up meaning here? Why is seafood not true food? He's also a seafood guy. So again, I'm not trying to rehash the conversation and only make this about food. Obviously, we have a lot of training camp talk to get to and whatnot. But it did pop up again here and I think that's going to be a theme because what did we talk about with Patrick Queen when this has happened? And, he's fully embraced the villain role. He's fully gone into that mode. I mean, it's, again, a lot of guys when it comes to just embracing a new city and getting a fan base to embrace them. Obviously, it takes some time. And Patrick Queen has certainly taken no time getting himself acclimated. And by the way, when this did get put out, the quote from Maulet, Steelers fans ended up finding it and were just roasting Maulet and saying, I forgot he existed. This guy is bad. But Queen is going to be front and center in these Pittsburgh-Baltimore matchups. I mean, the first time these two teams match up this season, I think everybody's going to be laser focused in on him every single defensive play for the Steelers. And all Ravens fans here are going to jump at the opportunity to go out there on the social media airwaves whenever he makes a mistake, right? Derrick Henry versus Patrick Queen, meet in the middle. Who's going to win? I personally have my money on Derrick Henry, but everybody, the lens, the microscope is so far focused on him right now because of all these comments where, again, it's not only this, though. It was for the majority of the offseason, and again, it really only stopped a couple months ago, but he just kept talking about the Ravens, kept talking about Baltimore, kept talking about this, and everybody's like, look, okay, cool, we get it, but it's gonna, what does Roquan Smith say, right between them lines? That's where it's gonna really count here. So again, it was a funny interaction, funny tidbit from Arthur Maulet, just in terms of, look, it's true though, right? The food in Baltimore is better, and to me, it's just where does the food pop into this? Okay, if the Steelers are a better atmosphere for you than the Ravens, if the city of Pittsburgh is a better atmosphere for you than the city of Baltimore, okay, I guess. But where does the food come in? What does the food have anything to do with anything in these conversations? So again, it's rehashing old stuff and bringing up old conversations. But when it's relevant again, it's relevant again, and that's what we're here to do on Locked On Ravens. So Pittsburgh, they did upgrade their starting inside linebacker position. They needed an inside linebacker. They kind of been cycling through guys, and to me, I think that Queen does give them a good option there. Now, again, the questions are going to be for him. He was starting to find it without Roquan in his third season, but Roquan came in and obviously gave him a massive boost over his final year and a half in Baltimore with Roquan next to him. So now he's out of Roquan's shadow. I think he got what he wanted in that regard. He has a full-time role there, but we do know that sometimes in coverage he's not great. I think he's a high motor player, sideline to sideline speed, really energetic and can really feed off of a crowd. And that's when Patrick Queen feeds off of the crowd, he plays free, he's a good player. But there are weaknesses, as every player does. I'm not just trying to signal out PQ here, but every single player has weaknesses. And for Patrick, it's going to be a matter of, well, were some of those masked by Roquan or not? Still playing in a great defense in Pittsburgh, don't get me wrong here. But he also had comments about, taking money versus winning and everything like that. And it was never realistic for the Ravens to re-sign him, right? It just wasn't. They signed Roquan. They essentially picked between Roquan and Patrick Queen. They made the right decision. Maybe he feels slighted. I'm not sure Baltimore offered him a contract. We haven't gotten any confirmation on that, but based off of certain comments from him and Geno Stone, it feels like neither of those guys were offered. And again, with offering deals, there's a difference between like, okay, we're going to offer you what we can, which is 2 years, $8 million for Patrick Queen or something like that, which would be disrespectful to offer him, right? And I think for the Ravens, they made it known what was up. Obviously, he felt some type of way as well when they drafted Trenton Simpson. He liked some tweets about going to the Texans and everything. So maybe there's just some bad blood there for him. I don't know what the deal is. But again, it's the conversation of all eyes are going to be on Patrick Queen when the Ravens and Steelers match up and Arthur Maulet against him. Roasting him. But again, he did say that, it's all jokes, brother for life, and all that as well. But coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the vault opening back up at Ravens practice. Stay tuned. We got a lot to get to here on the show. First, the show is brought to you by Gametime. For me, I love going to MLB games. I always have. I have a ton of great memories from when I was growing up at baseball games at Camden Yards, and I always try to go to a few per season to make new memories as well. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, so makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With Kittle last-minute deals, all-in prices, use and receipt, and the lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And on the Gametime app, obviously for the Orioles, you can find your tickets over on Gametime. They have amazing deals. Plus, with football season coming up, if you want those Ravens tickets, Gametime is the place to be as well. And the app has so many features, my favorite being last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. Plus, the app is really easy to navigate around as well. And some other features include flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, seat views, lowest price guarantee, Gametime ticket coverage, and so much more. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. Spelled LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today, last-minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. We're back for our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostriker here with you on this Thursday edition of the show. Really appreciate everybody again being here, spending some time with me on this Thursday and making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every day. Be sure to make your second listen Locked On NFL. We go over a ton of NFL content over there. I host that show on Mondays, so we dive into every single team. So if you would go over there, listen to that, subscribe over there as well. Would really appreciate that. Again, we're 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, Monday through Friday. We bring you 5 days a week of Ravens content. And we also go live every piece of Ravens big news. We'll go live for post games. We'll have game day episodes this year. We'll have a lot of cool things in store for you for this 2024 season. If you're an everydayer, thank you so much for being here today and making us a part of your day every day. If you're new to the channel, welcome in. Hopefully you are enjoying the content. You can like, subscribe, follow along, however you're listening or watching. And if you're somewhere in the middle, welcome back to the show. Now, let's get into some training camp notes from Wednesday. And we'll get into more, obviously, in the final part of the show. But for this, I want to focus on the vault opening back up for the Ravens. And Jonas Schaefer of the Baltimore Banner, shout out to Jonas, ended up putting together a really detailed guide of what Lamar did in practice on Wednesday. And it was a nearly flawless day, according to Jonas here. And we will get into what he did. Ended up going, so low red zone, 11 on 11, 2 for 2 with 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Likely on that first play, and then Tylan Wallace on the second play. Nobody covered Likely, and then Tylan Wallace beat Brandon Stevens. 7 on 7, he goes 3 for 4. He connected with Zay Flowers on a short pass. Scotty Washington got a bit of separation, and then he ended up connecting with Zay Flowers on more of a deep shot. And then there was a pass to Isaiah Likely as he got open downfield, but Lamar's pass apparently skipped off Lamar's hands. But as Jonas marks here at the end of this, he wouldn't miss again. 7 on 7 goes 4 for 4, scrambled to his left, found Isaiah Likely. Jackson connected with Tylan Wallace. Then he hit Zay Flowers again. Then he threw to Scotty Washington again. 5 on 5 in the next 11 on 11. Jackson fired a pass to Nelson Aguilar. Jackson hit Zay Flowers on a gain of 30 yards. Then you have another deep completion to Isaiah Likely. Cover 0 look, which obviously means heavy blitz. Jackson found Tylan Wallace, who ended up making a catch against Nate Wiggins. And then you have Lamar Jackson to Scotty Washington, and Ardarius Washington apparently was in coverage. He couldn't do much. Next 11 on 11 period, 3 on 3, or 3-4-3, excuse me. You have Isaiah Likely on a fake handoff from Lamar. Nelson Aguilar. He ended up getting it over at Arthur Maulet's head. And then Justice Hill in the left flat. 11 on 11 again in the red zone, 2 for 2 with a touchdown. He ended up getting a pressure, which would have been a sack. But, obviously you don't sack the quarterback in practice. You don't want to injure anybody. But Tavius Robinson ended up getting that. And then you have a Derrick Henry pass. Well, a Lamar Jackson pass of Derrick Henry, excuse me. And he ran by Ardarius Washington for a touchdown. And then you have this one. This is the big one with the vault opening back up. Jonas saying Lamar Jackson ended the period with a touchdown pass that, according to training camp reporting guidelines, reporters are forbidden from describing. So let's put on the thinking caps. Let's put them on right now. All right. What does this mean? It probably means one of two things. In fact, it probably really means one thing. The less likely option is that there was some trickeration and, maybe it was Lamar, just on a, double reverse or something, or he handed the ball off, a flea flicker type deal. But here's what I personally think happened. And again, you're not allowed to describe this type of thing. We're only speculating here. We are only speculating. But I think what this means is maybe we saw Lamar throwing it to an unconventional receiver, maybe someone who has to report eligible, right? Reporting eligible. Maybe on the offensive line. Again, I don't know. We're just speculating. I want to make that clear. We're not revealing team secrets, but we are speculating on what it could have been. Is the vault opening back up for the Ravens? Obviously, that was kind of the Greg Roman catchphrase, right? Is that vault opening back up? What's going to be going on? Are they going to do that again? Todd Monken, I do think we see more trickeration this season. I think last year the Ravens dabbled in it, like we saw it happen. But I think for this season, with everybody feeling more comfortable and things like that, I wouldn't be shocked if one, Derrick Henry throws a touchdown pass this season to maybe an offensive lineman or to Jackson himself. Two, wouldn't be shocked if Lamar threw, if you've been listening to me every day on this show, if you've been with me for years now and being a part of this community, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate the support. But we had Ronnie Stanley on the show a couple of years ago, still rehabbing from his injury. And that was the day or the Monday after that Thursday night debacle in Miami when they were supposed to go into Miami. I think Miami was 1-8, 2-8, 2-9 or something. And I asked Ronnie Stanley because Robert Hunt had caught a touchdown, or he picked up a ball and ran for a touchdown, or I think he was either just stopped or was for a touchdown or whatever it was. It was a long time ago. And I asked Ronnie Stanley, I said, seeing that happen, do you ever think about, as an offensive lineman, picking up the ball, running for a touchdown, and is that like a dream of yours? And he said, oh yeah, that is that's what offensive linemen dream of. It'd be awesome to do that. So I am on team throw a touchdown to Ronnie Stanley. I would put the clip out. I'd go crazy. I would absolutely love it. But those are the types of things that keeps defenses on their toes. I mean, let's go and I don't want to go back to this, but let's go back to the 2019 divisional round, right? 2020, when Derrick Henry, was a shotgun snap. And I expect the Ravens to do more of that, where, Lamar works out wide and you put Derrick Henry in the Wildcat and whatnot. But they had Derrick Henry in the Wildcat. He looks like he's just about to bulldoze up the middle. And then he jumps over the pile and throws the touchdown to, who was it to? I can't remember who it was to. But I think it was to an offensive lineman, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I am. Honestly, again, I don't want to remember a lot from that game, but I do remember that vividly in the picture of Henry, with the ball in the air. I would expect Baltimore to do something like that. And it just feels like, again, with last year being kind of a feel-it-out year for the offense, I think, again, we saw some of the trickeration at times. But to me, I feel like this is the perfect type of deal here to kind of unbox some of that and bring it out. So Greg Roman no longer in Baltimore. So the vault maybe is, if we want to name it something else, and if you have anything you want to try to name the trickeration this year instead of the vault is fully closed and we're not opening it back up. If you have another name for it, I'm trying to think on the spot right now of what I would name it. I can't think. Maybe I'll come up with it as we move into the show. I can't think of anything right now. But again, if you have any names for what it could be, instead, if you don't want it to be the vault anymore, if that is gone with Greg Roman, put a comment down below on YouTube. You can tag me on Twitter, message me on Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. of what a name for it could be when we're talking about trickeration and some spicy plays. But apparently the Ravens are getting spicy in training camp, and we're going to see how it all plays out for them this season. I expect it to be fun, so we'll see how it goes. Coming up, though, in the final part of the show, we'll talk about some more injury updates. Again, we got a clear injury update on Malik Cam, which is, again, very unfortunate and devastating. Also, some more notes on what happened on Wednesday. Stay tuned, plenty to talk about here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to at FanDuel. Lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So if you're talking to Orioles, we know Gunnar Henderson's still in the MVP conversation. You can get those odds over on FanDuel. Or for the Ravens, they open up as 2.5-point underdogs on FanDuel against the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 1. So if you're interested in that line, FanDuel has you covered as well. Head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. We're back here, our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you here. On this Thursday, again, we are talking Ravens football 5 days a week, plus we do bonus episodes. We go live after every single piece of Ravens big news, as well as after games for post-game episodes, and we have a lot more in store for you this season. And we're coming up, actually, since we're in August, this is my Locked On Ravens anniversary month, so middle of August. We'll be celebrating that here on Locked On Ravens. I used to, when we were in audio form, and that was years ago, but when we were in audio form, I used to play a segment from my first ever episode, which, again, do not go listen to that. It was a lot different than what it is now. Still kind of learning my way is just how to use the inflections in my voice and, I was feeling enthusiastic, but it wasn't coming across in my podcasts. And I had a very nice, really not so nice first review on my show, but we've come a long way since then. 2019 was when I started this off. So obviously started covering the team when Lamar Jackson had his first MVP season. So it's been a great journey here. Really appreciate everybody who's been along for the ride with me, whether you are an everydayer, whether it's your first time listening, or if you're somewhere in the middle. Any support means a lot to me, and I really do mean that. Let's talk about training camp here. Get back into Ravens talk as we round out the show today. We got a pretty devastating injury update on Malik Cam. Obviously, the news came out on Tuesday that he was done for the season. We talked about it a little bit on yesterday's show, but we didn't really know what the deal was. We obviously knew it was an injury of some sort. I believe the knee injury part of it was disclosed on Tuesday, but we didn't know what it was. And so John Harbaugh ended up talking about Malik Cam, and what wasn't great news was a clean tear of the ACL, done for the year. And it's devastating for a guy that, was apparently really coming on in training camp this season. We obviously saw him do tons of great things in training camp and preseason last year. Obviously, for him, he was more so of a depth piece, but I think could have played in specific roles for the Ravens if he made the team this year. And it wasn't if he made the team, because I wasn't sure if the Ravens were going to keep 5 or 6 outside linebackers this year. If it was 5, I didn't see him making the team. If it was 6, I could see him making the team. Still have Calvin, Lloyd Afe, Owe, David Ajabo, Adisa Isaac, Tavius Robinson. I think Robinson plays over Isaac, and Isaac is a pretty healthy scratch for most of the games this season. But, yeah, to me, it just feels like a tough blow. I mean, you got to feel for him. He's worked really hard to get to this point. Really, it's a feel-good story all the way around. And John Harbaugh did say his time will be coming. And again, hopefully Baltimore is able to get him back next season and he's able to do some great things for them. Other notes, though, Rashad Bateman did return to practice on Wednesday. So, again, we gave the injury update on him, and he gave his own injury update on Instagram on Tuesday night heading into Wednesday morning. But he was back on the field, back practicing. Good sign for the Ravens and what happened there. John Harbaugh gave an update on Trayvon Mullen as well. Obviously, if you're not aware, Trayvon Mullen got carted off the field on Sunday, I believe it was. This has been a very weird week just in terms of timing and everything, but I believe it was Sunday he got carted off the field with a shoulder thing. John Harbaugh said that it will be a few weeks with a shoulder injury, so I know a lot of people maybe thought it was more severe than that, but again, Baltimore's hoping to get him back in just a couple of weeks here. Other players who weren't practicing besides Trayvon Mullen, Deontay Hardy, Joe Evans, and Rayshad Nichols, and it later came out later in the day on Wednesday that Rayshad Nichols was waived with an injury settlement. So that was good. Yvonne Rigby, the undrafted inside linebacker who's missed all these practices up to this point, he was participating. And then Tez Walker was also back practicing as well. So look, bumps and bruises happen throughout training camp. Soreness happens, which Rashad Bateman was obviously dealing with. And, we saw Kyle Van Noy miss a couple of days. We saw other guys miss a few days too here and there. Teams are already getting banged up. Teams are already losing guys for the season. I mean, the Ravens already did. Other teams already have as well. This is what happens in football. Obviously you kind of got to survive through training camp in the preseason, make sure you can get into the regular season as healthy as possible. But it's hard because, again, you don't want to just go half speed in training camp. Like, you need to get better. And while that's, you're not going to go and hit as hard as you can, especially, you're not going to go sack quarterbacks like we talked about in the first part of the show, or second part, excuse me. I'm already getting the segments mixed up. Look at this. But I think that for me, you have to get better, and that's just not doing walkthroughs every day, right? Obviously, and we got, from, people who were at practice, it was more of a laid back-ish type of deal on Wednesday. And that's okay. You don't have to go 110% every single time. So it was, according to the people who were there, half speed, and then you got some 11-on-11 full speed stuff too. So not just all half speed, but it is what it is. Now, for Rashad Bateman, I do want to put in one note. He exited practice. Practice started up around 1:20-ish. He exited practice after about 2 or so hours. He didn't participate in the full speed drills. And again, from people who were there, didn't appear re-injured, just working his way back into things. So that is, and that's what it is too. Again, you want to be cautious, right? You just want to throw a guy back in there with the risk for, aggravating something or making it worse in training camp when there's just no need for that. There's no need for it. You want to be as cautious as possible with guys, especially during the training camp and the preseason portion of things. I think 2021 really served as a reminder for the Ravens with that stuff. And obviously seeing JK go down and then Gus and Marcus Peters going down as well. Like I think that was an organizational shift that we saw. And obviously we can talk about Steve Saunders and kind of his workout regimen. And the Ravens really did a full deep dive, full cleanse of their training regimens and strength practices and whatnot. So obviously it's never going to be perfect for any team. Certainly isn't for the Ravens, certainly isn't for anybody else. But I do think their deep dive has helped a lot of things, and hopefully, knock on wood here. And again, there it is. There's a knock. We're going to hope that the Ravens can get through training camp in the preseason as healthy as possible. Now, other things that ended up happening at practice quickly for the Ravens. Again, there wasn't a ton of stuff just because it was more on the half speed side of things. So, wasn't as many updates as we've seen, but it was really the Lamar show, right? It was the Lamar show, him doing his thing. And I think at the end of the day, you're seeing other guys step up. Other guys have good practices. We've heard good things about Marlon Humphrey. We've heard good things about Arthur Maulet. And, the secondary's playing really well. And it seems like they're getting contributions from a lot of different guys, which is good. Guys shine here, guys shine there. So I think it's a big part here. And again, Ryan Mink, who does a great job over at BaltimoreRavens.com. Zay Flowers was active. Bateman and Tez Walker both returned, as we talked about here. Eddie Jackson had a would-be sack against Josh Johnson. Sanusi Kane had a would-be sack against not against Malik Cunningham. It would have been a race to long completion to Malik Cunningham. Cunningham obviously moved over from quarterback to wide receiver, so Cunningham is not throwing the balls anymore. He is now catching the balls. But yeah, whatever, race to long completion there. So again, it feels like Baltimore is going to be very blitz heavy with their defensive backs as they have been. I don't expect any change there from Matt McDonald over to Zach Orr. I don't expect a ton of changes. Obviously, it's going to be Zach Orr's defense will be a little different, but the reason the Ravens went internal, in my opinion, was to kind of keep the system as intact as they could, while obviously Zach Orr will add his touches into it. So yeah, it was a good day for Lamar, a good day for the offense, it feels like in general, which again, offense will win some, defense will win some, but with Lamar back, there's a much higher likelihood that the offense will get some of these practices under their belt. That's all I have for you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens. Really appreciate everybody tuning in, listening to some food conversation, and obviously we talk Ravens here, right? Don't we listen to some Ravens conversation as well? Be sure to subscribe, like the video on YouTube. Also subscribe and follow along in audio form if you want to listen in audio form one day, watch in video form the next. You can do that because it's the same show, both audio and video. Come up tomorrow. I'll be rounding out the week with more Ravens content. Stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.